Do you ever feel like an imposter? Like, despite your experience and your education, that if people really knew, they would find out that you don't know what you're doing? Well, my guest today, Victor Mosconi, is an expert on the imposter phenomenon, what you might know of as imposter syndrome. And he's going to share with us about what you can do to break out of that pattern. Victor is a PhD candidate in psychology with a master's in psychology of leadership development and coaching, a master's in industrial organizational psychology, and founder of Imposter Solution Coach. Through his lifelong experience with imposter syndrome, his psychology background, and his coaching skills, Victor specializes in supporting up and coming women leaders and entrepreneurs in overcoming their self doubt and imposter thoughts to develop a mindset of self appreciation and strong self belief. And you can take his quiz on his website and discover what level of imposter syndrome you experience. So that's very cool. We'll talk more about that a bit later, and you'll find that link in the show notes as well. But for now, I want to welcome Victor. Welcome. I am so thrilled to have you on the show today to talk about this topic.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, wonderful. Will you start by sharing with us a little bit about how you decided to study imposter phenomenon?
Sure. I wish I could say it was just this one thing that clicked and, oh, that's what it is. And I'm just going to run into it. But it ended up becoming this lifelong journey based on my lifelong experience. And then little by little, these little pieces kind of fell together. Um, for the most part, growing up, again, didn't realize this until much later, but the seeds of a lot of it were kind of planted in my head from parents. Um, I don't really feel that they purposely were doing this. I think that was part of their motivation, the way they would see things, and it made sense at the time. But it built up in me over time, which I ended up carrying into my marriage, which had a huge negative impact on me through there to the point where um, things got really dark for me. And it got to a point where my marriage broke down, divorce, but through the healing process and learning more about myself, I started to realize aspects of what had gone on before, my own self belief, my own self perception, and then doing that, going back to get my second master's in leadership development and coaching. I started reading case studies that were reflective of things that I had experienced. And these were leaders that were going through things that I have experienced most of my life. And I was like, wait, this is like really too familiar. And I started doing more outside research along with the studies that I was doing and seeing this huge overlay and pattern and connectivity on in regards to imposter phenomenon. And at that point, I was like, okay, if this is so impactful in my life, and I just thought it was me, and it's affecting leaders all over, I'm like, this says something that has a bigger reach that nobody really talks about. Nobody really discusses. They kind of sweep it under the rug. They don't really mention much. And I'm like, I want to know more about this. And at the same time, I want to bring more awareness to others to know that, look, I've been building my own life to break out of this, to overcome this, to appreciate myself, that you can too. And it's just a matter of getting to that point of understanding it better to better know what steps to take to help yourself out. And so it's just kind of, like I said, it's just kind of like slowly built on itself to, I had the realization and wanted to take it to those next steps.
It sounds like you really had an aha moment, that you had this experience that you thought was just you, this painful experience. And then it was like a light bulb went on when you saw, almost like a light bulb illuminated that there
Mm-hmm.
are other people, there are other powerful leaders in the world, like not just other people, but leaders, important people, and people what we perceive as important, that have also experienced this. And that's when something shifted for you. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. Because on several different layers, one, I realized it wasn't just me, and two, because of my own, even as I was improving my own self belief at that point, I still didn't find myself to be, let's say, of great value. We'll put it in those terms there. But then realizing other people in high positions of leadership, depending on where they were in the world, what kind of an organization or anything of that nature, they were experiencing this. I thought it changed my own perception of myself and what I was experiencing, and how this has such a powerful negative impact, that I realized that it's like, oh, okay, this isn't a small thing, and it's not just like a throwaway thing, or I'm not a throwaway person. This is something that is truly impactful, where I'm like, I've got to reassess everything. And it was a really big moment where I started reassessing, when I'm understanding more about myself and my own experiences at that point too, where it really kind of shifted my own perception and focus.
Wow. And you said these words that really impacted me. I'm not a throwaway person. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
concept is not a throwaway thing, but I'm not a throwaway person. And that belief does so often go hand in hand with feeling like an imposter, doesn't it? That it feels like I'm not important or I'm not valuable. What I have to bring to the table doesn't matter. And that, I mean, that just really impacted me. And I was thinking about how it's like you're on this mission to help people shift from feeling like they don't matter, that they maybe feel like a throwaway person, into understanding something completely different, which is that you do have value. You're not an imposter. And cultivating this thing that you call self-belief. I'm curious about that, and I want to dive into more about what that means. But I think first we might need to talk about, like, what's the difference between imposter syndrome and imposter phenomenon? Are they the same thing? Like, what are we talking about here?
Okay, so yes, technically they are the same thing. And that's an excellent question, because when you do any kind of research, you hear anything on social media, it's pretty much imposter syndrome. That's everything that's out there. However, when it was first identified back in the 70s, it was identified as imposter phenomenon based on everything that, and the studies, a lot of the studies at the time were being done on women, and with women, and it was based on their experiences. And hence, that's why they call it a phenomenon, because that's what it was. It's based on the experiences that they were going through. Somewhere in the 80s, other researchers pulled information together and were writing up their findings, and they would indicate imposter phenomenon, and some were calling it imposter syndrome. However, even at that point, they would say, oh, well, it's not really a syndrome, because a syndrome is a disease or a disorder. So most people feel like, okay, well, this is a genetic thing that's in me and I can't get rid of it. But that's not what it is. It's definitely a phenomenon. It's based on experiences. But for whatever reason, I don't know why. I've tried to do research to find out, but I haven't figured out what clicked it. But I think the term syndrome just became something almost more of like that grabbing type of a term that people just latched onto, and it took off. So everybody calls it that. But I think that's part of the problem too, is when people hear it as a syndrome, they have this stigma and bias around it, because they feel like it's something that's within them, it's bonded to them, this is who they are, and it represents a failing of themselves, as opposed to really knowing that this is a phenomenon, this is an experience, or based on experiences you've had, that you can build up new understanding of yourself to then change how you perceive yourself based on the previous experiences. So it's I try to talk more about it, when I talk more about it, as we are today, about it as imposter phenomenon. But out there in like social media and the news world and everything, it's definitely always mentioned as imposter syndrome. So to grab attention first, it's almost like you have to use that terminology, which is the wrong terminology, but it's the only thing that people, for the most part, know. And then it's kind of educating them from that point on.
I get the sense too that when you explain to people, it's not a syndrome, it is a phenomenon, that you're taking some of the power away. The way that you describe that is, a syndrome is so different than a phenomenon. A phenomenon is something that happens, and it makes it seem so much more universal. It's a human experience. It's not this thing that's wrong with you. And so when we focus on calling it imposter phenomenon, we're taking away some of the power that it has
Right.
over us. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I completely agree. I think that's one of the things that can help is kind of reframing how people view it, and even with the terminology, because again, like you said, syndrome like has this big, powerful negative aspect to it. But if you start shifting the terms and calling it more of what it is, which is a phenomenon, it's based on your experiences, people can shift their own mindset and perception of it, realizing that, oh, okay, wait, this is something even I can, overcome and I can work through. And I think that can definitely help because it can take some of that stigma and that anxiety off of what they're experiencing as well.
Absolutely. You mentioned too something about your parents, that this idea, and I find this with a lot of my clients. So in addition to being a speaking coach, I'm also a psychotherapist. And sometimes people have this hard time saying, oh, my parents had some responsibility in what I'm experiencing now or how I'm feeling now. And it sounds like you were able to come to a place, if I'm understanding you right, where you could see that your parents did the best that they could, and that there were places where you got missed, and that is part of how this feeling and this phenomenon developed inside of you. And that leads me to the question that if somebody's having this experience of feeling like an imposter, this imposter phenomenon experience, is it their own fault?
No, it is not their own fault. But when you are experiencing this, whether you know that this is what you're experiencing or not, you definitely think it's your fault. All of this is your fault. How you feel, how you see yourself, everything that you do, it's your fault. That's how you see it, you perceive it, you believe it. But in reality, it's not your own fault at all. It's based on these experiences that occur to you. And especially if it starts up as a child and it's a lifelong thing. It's things that are happening to you and you don't know it. If I can give an example. So growing up, using grades, for instance, I could bring home grades where I could get on a report card. And I'm just giving an example, like two A's, two B's, and a C using 5 classes. I would bring the report card home. My dad would see it and go, oh, well, hey, you got two A's. Great. But why do you have two B's? Why can't these be A's? And it was like right there in a kid's mind, even at the beginning, you're like, oh, okay. It's that motivation. You want to improve. He wants you to improve. I get it. So when you bring the next report card home and let's say it's 3 A's, or let's say 2 A's and an A minus and a B and a C, again, it would be looked at and it would go, oh, good, you got 3 A's, but this one's an A minus. Why isn't this an A plus? So that next step is, oh, the A wasn't good enough. It has to be a higher A. So you're pushing yourself to do better. And of course, then there's that B. So even if the third report card, for instance, you bring it home and let's say there's 3 A pluses and a B plus, it's still, okay, that's great. But why is there a B and you still have a C in this class? So the achievements that you have succeeded in are quickly dismissed. They may be acknowledged, but they're quickly dismissed and the focus is on the negative. Over years, that builds up in yourself. And what you do is you start to see those negatives. Again, it's that whole thought of it's me, I'm not good enough. I have small amount of value because I can't ever achieve what I should be doing. But it's not because of you. You personally did not create this. It was created by the experiences. There's other things too. Again, on putting yourself as a secondary person, going to a friend's house. When I was a kid, we would go to a friend's house and it was, okay, when we are at a friend's house, it's their house. Let them play with what they want to. If they want to watch something on TV, they can do that. You can do it when you get home. Okay, cool. You're a kid. Makes sense. Fine. Have those guests come over with their kids. Okay, they're guests. If there's something you don't want them to play with, put it away. Otherwise, they can play with what they want. And if there's something on TV, they can watch what they want. You can watch something after they've left. Already in 2 cases, you realize that other people are more important than you. They have priority over you. And it would apply to other scenarios too. You're in a friend's car with the radio, you're having dinner, whatever it might be. They're always more important than you. So again, it was, even as a kid, you didn't understand it. I didn't even process it. But little by little, over time, it became this aspect that, okay, everybody else is more important than me. And so that slowly filters into your brain and the way you think about everybody else and yourself. And even as I grew up and started going through all this, I started realizing their idea of it was respectful, being appreciative, putting the honor on the others. We are considered the guest or they are the guest, and it was a different way of doing it. I know that they didn't do it on purpose. I know that they didn't even see it in that same frame. But as a kid, over years of the same exposure, it has such a negative and toxic impact that it sets you up to see yourself as a secondary person with very little value compared to everybody else. And you can never be good enough. And it has huge implications over time.
Mm-hmm. And then you feel like that throwaway person.
Yes, completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody else is more important than I am. So what's the point?
Yeah. And when you're a kid, it's like the water you're swimming in that you express that you don't you just go along with it. You know,
Mhm.
this is what's told to you, or this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you be a good girl or a good boy. And so you do it, and it's just the water you're swimming in. You don't realize, you don't understand what it's doing to you. You just do it. And so it takes so often, I think, to have somebody like you who can help unpack that of no, it's not actually your fault. It was because of these experiences, that these experiences did not set you up in a way that you can actually see your own value.
Correct. And along with that, it's understanding, yes, that these experiences set you up, that it's not your true value. You have to see beyond that. Um, and it can come from seeing those higher achievement aspects. It can come from um, other connections where it's an achievement aspect, but it's almost like you always have to be the best at what you do. So if you're in music, you're always that top music performer, and you might be very skilled at what you do. The problem that goes with it is it's so much of your skill is put on you as to your value. So as long as you're winning awards and you're always that top notch person, you're great. But as soon as you falter, you're not good enough now. And what happens to many people is that when they're in their school, their own environment, they're the top notch, it's the best, they're feeling great, everybody looks up to them. They end up going into another environment where there is a lot of other people that are that same high caliber. Now they're already looking at themselves going, oh my gosh, I'm not good. I'm not good enough and I'm going to fail. And now I don't want to do this. And they add all this anxiety because they realize that before they were the top in their area, in their environment. Now they're in all these others that are the same level. And it's that competition and it's that freak out moment where they realize all they've ever gotten was these great awards and accolades for being who they are because of that skill. And now it's
Yes.
like, what do I do?
I
So
definitely experienced that as a high school student. It was very easy to be at the top of my class. And then I went to Smith College, which is a very prestigious women's college. And suddenly I was in the room with all the people who were the top of their class, who were the best in their class. And suddenly I felt like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing. I must be terrible. It's all me. I'm not good enough. Everything I thought I was confident in, which even then wasn't a ton, but I must have been wrong. I must have been
mhm.
mistaken. I had that exact experience that you're describing.
Yeah, and it so now in some cases people will experience something like that, and after a few weeks or months, they kind of get over it because they start to feel like, oh no, wait, okay, I can do this, I can handle this, and that's a good thing, and that's a normal aspect. Whenever many people will experience an imposter phenomenon, it will be something where new job, new opportunity, change in their life, they'll experience this because there's a whole lot of new and unknowns. But after a few weeks or months, depending on what it is, things kind of start settling down and they get a more confidence of like, oh no, I got this. Everything's going to be okay, and I understand what I'm doing. But those that grow up with the sensation and feeling from a young age, it's there every single day. So you put them into this kind of a situation, it's there every day. Even after months of them doing well, they're looking at everybody else and realizing, no, they're all better than I am still. I don't know how I'm going to be able to make it. I know I made it so far, but it's by luck, but it's by chance. The professor must just like me, or my boss just must be having pity on me, something of that nature, where again, it's all based on outward and external forces and external reasons as to why you're good and why you're able to do what you're able to do.
It sounds like a lot of it too, that there are, I'm hearing kind of these three different pieces. That one is a very big emphasis on your value is on what you output, your value is on what you achieve and what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of this critical eye of nothing is ever good enough. Like, oh, okay, you got the C, that's not good enough. Oh, you got the B, well, that's not good enough. You got the A minus, that's not good enough. You got an A, well, that's okay, but there's probably other places you can improve. So there's
Mm-hmm.
this critical eye, always looking at what's wrong. And then there was another story you told. What was the other story you told after the grade story? What was another
Um, oh,
example?
um, Going to a friend's house.
Yes, yes. And so then there's that other piece of everybody else is more important.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't matter as much. We always need to be thinking about the other person and giving them emphasis, giving them importance. So I see those three pieces that you've laid out, and I'm wondering, are there any others? Are there any other pieces that tend to be the foundation for this phenomenon?
Um, there can be, yes. It could be based on trauma, where you are, depending on whatever trauma has occurred in your life or within your environment, the blame is placed on you, or you are constantly thrown guilt for whatever is going on, even though you may have no connection to it, but it can be done that way. Like, and I'm using this from other scenarios that I know of, where it's like, if for, let's say, a parent or an adult or somebody else within that family or community has lost a job, for instance, and it's not the child's fault, but they'll put the blame on the child because, well, as a parent, you have to put your attention towards that child. And if it wasn't for that child, then I probably would have kept my job, using that as an example. So the child then feels guilty for that job loss, even though they had nothing to do with it. And again, it's never just that one time. Like with most other things and aspects of trauma, it's constantly repeated, restated, or brought in other directions. So that constant trauma, then again, even with that, it's like, well, it's my fault. These
Mm,
bad things happen because of me, which means I'm bad. I'm the cause of problems. I'm the cause of issues, which means that I'm always going to be a problem and I'm an issue. So anything that happens, it's my fault, which
mm,
you can take into other relationships as well, because literally you could go and buy your significant other a coffee, you bring it home, it's the wrong coffee. Well, is it the barista's fault? Is it the communication? Was it just a mix up? Was it an accident? No, it was my fault. I should have double checked it. I should have been clear. I should have triple checked what I stated before. I should have made sure before I left. There's all these different checklists you can go off because of that trauma, because you already see yourself as being the problem.
mm,
So that's another aspect. And then, of course, one that helps to kind of frame a lot of this is a lot of time it's a fixed mindset
mm,
where you see everything as is. You are good at what you do because of the skills you have, but that's as far as it's going to go. Your ability to grow and learn, well, that's not really going to change because it's just who you are. This is how your life is. This is how your life is going to be. Even if you're 12 years old or 42, this is who you are, your personality, your character, your ability to learn. And that's as far as it's going to go. And you can't do anything more about it because you're just not good enough for it. And that fixed mindset, which can come from a lot of these other um, issues and reasons and causes, is kind of built up around these different aspects, and that keeps you stuck because you don't feel like I can break out of it. I can change. Nothing's ever going to matter because I am who I am, and this is as far as it goes.
absolutely. I think that looking at fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I mean, when I read Carol Dweck's book about growth mindset, it was so eye-opening for me because I definitely identify as somebody who's struggled with imposter syndrome and feeling not good enough, and having that understanding of even knowing, like you described before, of even knowing what a fixed mindset is, that until you have that realization of, oh, this is this thing I'm feeling. This is this imposter
Mm-hmm.
phenomenon I'm feeling. Oh, this is what's happening to me, this fixed mindset thing. Then until we know what it is, we can't even identify that we're experiencing it. And that's why I
Exactly.
love what you're doing in helping people understand that this is even a thing.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right, though. It's like if you don't understand it and how you're thinking and seeing things, then it's like these concepts are out there, and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it. I feel this, but like, why am I feeling this? What's going on? I don't understand what I can do, but I mean, I can't do anything about it. It's like you can, if you have to understand how you're viewing your own life and how you're seeing the uh, events unfold, and what you're doing to change it. You have to realize that you're preventing yourself, you're stopping yourself based on, of course, the previous experiences have set you up in this pattern. It's like created this mindset, this way of looking at yourself, this own self-belief, basically, that you can't do anything more. I'm as good as I'm going to get. And it's not good enough.
Yes, yes. So we've talked about what imposter phenomenon is. We've talked about what creates it or what sets the foundation for it. Can you share with us some tools to
Of
break
course.
through imposter phenomenon?
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Some of the things you have to understand too is that this isn't there's many articles out there that you can scour throughout the internet and see, and it's like, here's 10 easy steps and boom, you'll crush imposter syndrome forever. Like, yeah, it doesn't work that way. I mean, I wish it did. It'd be great, but it is a constant process. And if you've experienced this lifelong, it's it's something that you have to work at on a daily basis. And it's something that you may have to work on for the rest of your life in different ways. But as you know the tools and you feel more confident and you have that belief about yourself, it's easier to do. But there will be things that pop up that you're going to get hit with those imposter thoughts again. And you have to go, oh, wait, okay, take it back, reflect, redirect, and keep moving forward. But one
Ooh,
of the first things,
can I repeat what you just said?
of
So
course,
when you're having imposter thoughts, which I love that, when you're having imposter thoughts, that's so cool because then you're naming it as an imposter thought. And
mhm,
then you said reflect, redirect. Was there a third set? You said reflect and redirect.
reflect, redirect, and reframe.
Reflect, redirect, and reframe. Can you talk us through that? How do you do that? So if I'm having an imposter thought, I'm feeling like, oh man, here I am on this podcast. I'm supposed to be the host. I don't know what I'm doing. Why is anybody even listening? What should I do?
Okay. So, for instance, with that, the first thing, of course, is reflecting on it, recognizing and reflecting and realizing, okay, wait, I'm having these imposter thoughts. I'm thinking negatively about myself and about what I'm doing. So that's the first step, because that's when you're reflecting on those thoughts and recognizing this is how I'm thinking. Then you want to redirect it, and you end up redirecting as to like, what are some of the positives? It's like, no, I'm doing this for a reason. How, like, where do I want to look? Instead of looking at the negatives as to why would anybody want to listen to me? I'm not good enough at this. I don't have enough. There's other people out there that have more knowledge than I do. You pause and go, okay, no, redirect my thoughts. Why do I want to do this? What is it that I want out of this? Reframing then comes in that last step, which kind of ties into redirect, but reframing is basically looking at it going, I can do this. This is going to be a challenge because I don't have 5 million listeners, but I know I'm doing this for a cause. I am not doing this for the short term 6 month, let's get some quick money and get out of it. I'm doing this because I want to help people. And so I'm just going to take it step by step. And new challenges that come up, I'm going to help to understand what they are, learn what steps I can take to overcome them, and build from there. And that's kind of how you reframe your mind. So this way, you're not thinking about the negatives. You're not thinking about the challenge, the difficulties where, yes, it's there, but you realize that you can take those steps and move forward and learn and build on to what you're doing.
Ooh, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. So when you have an imposter thought, reflect, notice you're having the thought,
Mm-hmm,
reframe it, see if there's a different way to look at it,
mm-hmm,
and then redirect it. And I love that piece that you said about why are in the redirect or the reframe. Why am I doing this? Like, what is the bigger purpose of this? That's something with my speaking coaching clients that I share with them so often is to think about why you're speaking. What is the gift you're giving to the audience? What's the bigger picture? It takes the focus off of you. And it sounds like that's part of this process too, that it's not so much about, oh gosh, I have to be good. I have to get the A plus 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 plus. But what's my bigger reason for doing this? And how can I see this as a gift? Or how can I see this as I'm giving something? Or how is this helping me to reach some other goal that I want to reach? So looking at it in a different way.
exactly. Definitely. And see, that's one of the other things too, when trying to break this down, is so much of the time we focus on everybody else. We're comparing ourselves, whether it's looking back at parents, using that as an example, like, oh, well, they always said I wasn't good enough, or that I wouldn't be able to do this. Okay, your focus is on them and what they said before, as opposed to looking at who you are now. So much of the time you get stuck in that whole thing. Well, I'm still that 12-year-old. No, you're not. Okay, you're way past that point. Look at who you are now. What have you achieved? And where has that come from? With that, don't compare yourself. As you were saying, with like when they're speakers, it's like, oh, there's all these other people. It's like they're not going to want to listen. It's like, again, what you're doing in that case is you're focusing on everybody else as to, well, they don't want to listen, or there's other better speakers than me, and then what I can do, and then how I can say it. It's like, well, there's different speakers. They all have different skills and talents and focuses, but you have your own voice. You have your own experiences that create who you are, that you can bring your experiences out that are going to help and connect with other people. So much when we look at social media and that comparison aspect, it's, well, everybody needs to be like me. No, they don't. You don't want everybody like you. You want to be you, and that's all that you matter about. It's like focus on what's best for you. Where do you want to go with your life? And when you do that, you start focusing on those aspects, going, okay, I'm going to do this because I have experience, I have knowledge, and I know it can help. Maybe it's only going to help 5 people. Maybe there's 100 people in the audience. It's going to help 5 people. Okay, those are 5 people that really could use your help, and you could be making a huge difference in their life. And at the same time, maybe there's 10 other people that listen to you and they don't need your help right now, but that thought just kind of permeates in their head for the next few weeks, months, maybe a year, who knows? And maybe they act on it. Maybe they recommend you to somebody else. You just don't know where stuff is going to go. But instead of focusing on them, like, are they going to listen to me or are they going to care? You focus on bringing your message out. And that's, again, not comparing yourself to anybody else, just focusing on your qualities, your character, and your growth.
Wow. That's so powerful. Just even hearing you, I feel my body kind of relaxing and feeling like, oh, I can do that. I can come back to focusing on just me, almost like putting those blinders on, but in a really positive way of I don't need to look at what the horses next to me are doing. I'm just going to run my own race.
Yes, exactly. Now, the challenge with that is we'll start doing that, and then we'll look at ourselves and go, okay, but I don't have any skills. I'm not good enough at this. Okay, I can do my own journey, but what do I have to offer? That's when you have to stop again and reflect back on yourself and go, okay, well, what are my skills? And you'll hear many people that experience a lot of imposter phenomenon go, I don't have any skills. I'm not good at anything. Like, yes, you are. Look at what you've done so far. What are your accomplishments? And it could be like, well, I got this job promotion and I got this degree. But I mean, it was just, I just lucked out. Like, really? You didn't. You have to, again, look at yourself. And this is what I'll tell people. It's like, look at your skills, look at those accomplishments. What did you put into those accomplishments? Maybe it was a job promotion. Well, you didn't just walk in and get the promotion. You obviously had to do something to get to that point. Oh, well, for the last 2 years, I've been working really hard. I've been learning a lot more of the new dynamics, the new programs, the new processes. I was leader of a couple different projects, and I helped to develop this aspect or that aspect. And, it's like, okay, what skills go with those? What have you done? And how have you helped others? Because oftentimes your skills kind of will feed into others because you'll teach others or show them what you can do. And again, it's just showing your own skills, whether it's communication skills or writing skill. It's just a technology skill, depending on what the job is. Same thing if you're going through school and you're gaining that degree. It's like, well, yeah, I got a degree, so I wrote up a lot of papers. Okay, did you automatically know how to write up all those papers? Like, well, no, I mean, it took a lot of hours. I wrote a lot. I had to do a lot of research. Okay, what did you have to do for the research? Well, I had to know how to break things down and analyze and look for the important information and synthesize it together and format it so it could flow properly and analyze the data. Okay, those are skills that you can apply. It doesn't mean that, yes, you're a great person at analyzing, but the basic general skills are things that you can do well. And it's a matter of getting yourself to look at that and going, oh, I didn't get that degree just by luck. I put a lot of time and effort. I mean, it took me 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it might be. And all that time, energy, learning, growth, development of myself to get to that point. Because when I wrote that final paper, that was me. And you have to recognize that you're the one that did that. Same thing with getting the promotion. It's like, oh, well, no, I got the promotion because they think I'm the best at what I can do for them because of everything that I've learned in these past 2 years and how I've grown and how I've been able to apply that and how I've taken other steps in leadership roles or helping to take initiative on other projects. But most of the time, we just dismiss that. Well, I just lucked out. It's not that important. It was easy, or it's like, I'm sure it was easy for everybody else. Believe me, I've had that thought before. Everybody else could do it. It's easy. And then you realize, oh, it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort. Oh, maybe that's why I was in these kind of positions. And it's really important to recognize that.
Yes. Oh, Victor, what I love about this is I hear how, as a coach, not only are you sharing these incredible techniques with people to help them to shift out of that fixed mindset, to know what to do when they have imposter thoughts, but you help them to see when their mind is always looking at, no, my value is on my accomplishments, my value is on my accomplishments. You're helping to shift that focus to see, look at all the process you put into it. You're helping them to see the journey. You're shifting their eyeballs are only seeing one thing, and you're saying, hey, it's not just the trees. Let's look at the whole forest. Let's look at everything that went into this so that they can see the whole picture of who they are and what that accomplishment means. It's not just a diploma, a piece of paper, but it's everything that went into that. It's not just the tip of the iceberg, it's the whole iceberg.
Right, exactly. And as we talked about at the very beginning in regards to self-belief, that's what I'm trying to get people to, is that belief in themselves of like, oh, I can do this. I can actually accomplish these new jobs and new opportunities. And it's going to be scary, but I can do it because I've accomplished other ones in my past. And I've been able to overcome those challenges and get to this point where I am now. But that's the challenge, is that most people, especially when you're experiencing imposter phenomenon, you don't see any of that. You downplay it, you dismiss it. You, again, don't see much value in yourself because what's there to see? I'm in the job that I'm in just because I lucked out. I got the degree just because I happened to skate through. I'm sure everybody else did better than I did. So again, you're comparing yourself to everybody else. You're already downplaying your skills. You don't even see your skills. And so when you get into these positions, I'm just here. I'm sure when the better person comes in, they're going to kick me out anyways. So again, you don't see their quality, and it's getting people to be able to see themselves as quality of worth, and not just in that aspect of seeing that because, as you said, their accomplishments or that achievement, but in their own skills and their character and who they are as a person, to bring that self-belief up and realize, yeah, I do have value. I am of value. Even if nobody else sees it, maybe I'm around the wrong people, and I need to connect myself with people who really truly appreciate myself. But at the core of it is you have to appreciate you before it matters for anybody else.
And in its essence, is that what self-belief means? Is to believe in yourself and believe in your own value, no matter what's happening around you?
Yes, exactly. No matter what else is happening around you, who else is saying things or not saying things, is that at the end of it, it doesn't matter, because you know for yourself, I matter. I have value, I have worth, and I'm good at what I am, at who I am and what I do, because I am. And that's what's at the core.
Wow. Yeah. So shifting out of imposter phenomenon and into self-belief. That's the journey.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. This is so powerful. If there was one thing, if you could boil this down to one thing, I know it might be difficult, but one thing that you wanted listeners to take away today, what would it be?
I guess the one thing I would say is, regardless of whatever has occurred in your past, and I'm not dismissing it, but I'm getting you to understand that regardless of what has occurred in your past, you have the ability to actually change the way you see where you are in life, and actually reframe your own life to what you want, and create an understanding and a true appreciation of yourself to then achieve your goals that you want, because you believe in yourself. It's a matter of you actually being able to basically just recreate, and not recreate yourself, but recreate how you see things, to actually acknowledge and appreciate yourself.
What a powerful frame, that even though imposter phenomenon, it's not your fault. It's because of things that happen to you.
Yes.
You have the power. You have the power to change things.
Yes. Yes, and it's very true, down to the core. You have that power to change things for what you want at the end of it.
Ooh, wow. Wow. Thank you for this discussion. This has been so empowering for me to listen. And I'm sure that if you're listening, that there are a lot of takeaways that you're walking away with today. And Victor, if somebody wants to work with you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me would be to go to my website. That'd be easiest. Just going to Victor Moss, so it's VictorMos.com. and go to my website, be able to go from that point, message me, and it's easy to go from that.
And you have a quiz, right? You have a quiz that people can take?
Yes, I do. So when you first go to the website, yes, there's a quiz. There's 10 questions that I went through a variety of other imposter phenomenon type quizzes and my own background of information and pulled together and created this quiz that will give you a reflection as to basically what's your level of imposter phenomenon thoughts and feelings. And after you do so, yes, if you put your email in, it will then send you your information, which will give you your score and also will give you kind of a reflective as to where you're at and steps that you can take for yourself.
That sounds so valuable. That sounds so valuable to be able to have a better picture. Like you said, the first piece in the healing journey of this is to really understand where you are, to reflect and to be able to look at it. And so
Yes.
this is a great tool to be able to do that. I'm going to go and check that quiz out myself. I can't wait to see it. And so go and check that out. That'll be in the show notes as well. So you can find Victor's website in the show notes. But again, it's victormos.com, victormos.com. Thank you. And I also want to encourage, if you're listening, start calling it imposter phenomenon. Let's all make an effort to shift out of imposter syndrome and start calling it imposter phenomenon. Victor, thank you so much. What a treat it's been to have you here and to get to learn from you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on and getting a chance to just talk with you about this. I really appreciate it.